So, I mean, let me just take a drag back to what some of the things that Olumiwa made mention of. Like governments embarking on projects that perhaps they need not, that they might not be able to see through at the end of the day. But if you make things, if you make life easier, if you're building roads, you're building schools, and all these projects, don't you think that the minimum wage should still be on the low side?
I don't think, you see, when it comes to governance, governance cannot be reduced to just paying salaries. But what we are saying is that the Nigerian government has what it takes to pay salary and still do its obligations. You see, when we're talking about minimum wage, uh, the salary you get is just one factor in what determines the economy. Social security is a whole big factor too. In Ukraine, where I live, averagely, you see people who are getting salaries of, let's say, an average of $300 per month. Of course, that is big enough to what a lot of people get in Nigeria. But these people get $300 as salary, have access to social security, they get housing cheap. When you see the kind of cars they drive, you will not believe it compared to their salaries, because the government has made social security services available to their citizens. So there are a lot of things that we need to talk about. How do you control inflation? How do you bring investment into your state? And many of these governments and governors, and especially at the state level, are not thinking. They are only waiting for allowances and are being breastfed. So we need to be able to, talk about what are state governments doing.
Muiwa, let me bring you back again into the conversation. Let's look at the fact that, or let's even look at how many states have even implemented the 18K or the 18,000, that was agreed the last time the NLC and the federal government had this kind of sit down they're having at the moment. How many states have even implemented that one, let alone moving forward to agree on the new one?
Well, I think to answer that question, we should ask ourselves how many states have built unnecessary bridges and other white elephant projects over the last 3.5 years. Uh, as I had mentioned earlier, the problem is not that the states can't pay. The point remains that the resources are being mismanaged. And I'll give you an instance. Over the last 1 or 2 years, we have had at least three different tranches of bill house specifically meant or perhaps developed towards offsetting allowances and salaries or areas of workers. There was a pari reform, which states would have argued where their monies, which the federal government failed, did. The government on one or two occasions also bailed out states across board, particularly states that were heavily indebted. And even after that or after that, states are still owing. Take, for example, a state like Kogi State or an Ocean State, for example. What has happened to all the bailouts and all the transfers of money they received from the government? So what has happened is that most of the state governors have argued that, well, look, we agree or we admit we are holding the workers, but we also have other obligations to be met. So in actual fact, we have seen situations where the federal government has done the needful by providing resources for these salaries to be fed, but state governors are there not. So the number of most the problems we have at the moment, um, I mean, come down to priorities and misplaced priorities, and outright selfishness or outright selfishness on the part of those who govern the Nigerian state, and particularly in the states of the federation. You have leaders or you have state governors who are absolutely, nonchalant in the attitude towards their workers' welfare. I mean, these different tranches of the money they have gotten as bailout from the government is enough for you to really determine whether they really have interest in their workers at heart or not.
So would you
What has
would you
happened?
would you Muyiwa, would you rather the government pay salaries and put aside all those projects they're doing, for instance, schools, good roads, healthcare, and all of that in wrapping up?
The argument that 80% of a state's wage bill or a state's income would go to salary payment hasn't been proven. Most of these governors come up with all sorts of excuses so that they can have some sympathy in the public space. I refuse to admit or accept that the only thing states can do or state governors can do is to pay salaries and then they have nothing left to show. None of the states have actually taken the bull by the horn to really publish how much they earn, how much executive votes go into their pockets, and how much their wage goes to. What we have seen multiple figures that we aren't really too sure which one is better and which is not. And I think there is so much, secrecy around that. And I think also that there is a whole lot of intelligence and stealing going on under the guise of trying to pay salaries or struggling to pay salaries. So I think that the state governors or state governments need to come clean. That hasn't been done, and until that happens, we're going to continue to have this. The time was when workers weren't being hold salaries. What happened to those days? And I've told you a while ago that more than three tranches of bailouts have been released to state governments to pay salaries. They have simply refused to do that. So how do you reconcile such flagrant irresponsibilities
Let me
on the part
let,
of
let,
state
let,
government?
let me also get Victor's take in wrapping up. Victor, would you prefer that all those things, I mean, like you made mention of where you live, would you prefer all those things have been put in place and the salaries remain on the low scale?
No, you see, at the end of the day, the whole idea of wealth is to be able to access what you need per time and to be able to get them at your convenience. So, in a state where, for instance, you have, let's say, you get a salary of $300, but you have access to funds to be able to get other things you need done, where petrol is not as expensive as it is, and you can have electricity at cheap rate. You go to Nigeria now to use a stable internet, you have to pay 18,000 naira at least. That's minimum wage. So that means if you want to use internet really in Nigeria, you have to pay with the minimum wage. So how can an average Nigerian afford this thing? So all of these infrastructures, all of this social security system must be put in place. They can be put in place. What we need is a political will. And this political will necessarily not come from the oppressor. The oppressed must be able to demand. And sometimes I wonder what the NLC has been doing all this while. It's like they've been sleeping.
Thank you very
You
much,
cannot
Victor.
sleep on the government. You have to demand not just minimum wage, but everything that will make the welfare of the average worker be put in priority in your country.
We'll have to leave it there. Victor Bamshai, thank you for joining us on the program from Kiev in Ukraine. Thank you once again, as well as Dr. Olumuyiwa Amao, who joins us from Dunedin in New Zealand. Thanks, guys, for joining us on the program today. And that's where we are. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back in a moment. Please stay with us.